Farming Matters with Nicola Weir on BBC Radio Ulster.
Hello and welcome to the first Farming Matters programme of 2020. On the show this evening we are going to be discussing veganuary. Never heard of it? Well, it's a way of promoting veganism throughout January. Are you going to try it out, and what impact does it have on farming? I've beat farmer Libby Clark in studio alongside agri-journalist Chris McCulloch, and they'll be helping me negotiate what's been making the farming news. Do you want to join in? Well, you can text us on 81771 or email farming.matters@bbc.co.uk. And we'll be taking a look at the humble potato. Things didn't go to plan with the weather late last year, and I've been having a chat with a farmer who still has 60 acres of potatoes in the ground. We've got the market report, paper review, phone call from the farm, and that all-important weather on the menu. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Farming Matters. Well, it's another year, it's 2020, and it's back to the roaring 20s. And Libby, you're here with us again at the start of a new year. And how was your festive period?
If I told you it was quiet, I'd have to cross my fingers. It was the usual mayhem. I love the run up to Christmas, plenty of nights out, everybody's in a good mood, and now we're back to lean living.
I know, because whenever you have those nights out, you still have to get up and do the farming.
I do, 365 days a year, as does every farmer. We don't get the days off, but we might just take a little longer doing our chores.
Okay, well, I suppose that's okay. And what about you, Chris? Did you have a few nights out?
I did indeed. I had quite an eventful Christmas and a very interesting one with lots of food, lots of choice. A wee bit of booze too, and a few days down, I have to say, but that's what made it Christmas all right. It just came and went.
So are you going to try and lose those pounds?
Well, through some other means, maybe.
You should be saying to me, how very dare you, Ms. Weir, say that I put on weight.
After you said there, I'm looking very respectable tonight, earlier on.
I didn't, my producer did.
Oh, sorry.
How very dare you.
There we go. I made an effort.
Well, anyway, it's great to have you both back in the studio for 2020 for Farming Matters. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of veganuary?
Heard of it, yes.
You've heard of it, Libby?
Unfortunately, I just call it the V word.
The V word, okay. Well, it's a campaign to encourage consumers to go vegan for January. And it comes with a very hard-hitting social media campaign involving raw meat being thrown at people who say they prefer meat to vegetables. Here's a clip of some of the promotion for it.
I farm.
January is right around the corner, and you know what that means, right? Thousands of people taking the Veganuary pledge to try vegan for 31 days. The Veganuary challenge has been sweeping the globe over the last couple of years, but this Christmas we need your help to make January 2020 our biggest campaign yet. This year we're aiming to get a massive 350,000 people taking part, and we need to do something big to reach them all.
So we're producing
the first ever
Veganuary TV ad. So please, make a Christmas gift today that will inspire people to go vegan, protect animals from cruelty, and change lives.
Well, there's no doubt the rise of vegetarianism and veganism has been meteoric over the last few years, particularly when meat production has been linked to climate change. So are you considering going vegan this year? Will it make any difference to your carbon footprint? What impact will it have on the future of farming? And finally, what difference could it make to your health or to change your diet? Joining me on the line from Edinburgh is Barbara Bolton from Go Vegan World, and also linking up with us from Worcester is Ellie Feeps. I hope I've said that right, Ellie, from the National Sheep Association. And in studio is nutritionist Jane McClenaghan. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining me this evening. Firstly to you, Barbara, what is your organisation and how does it promote veganism?
So I work for Go Vegan World, and we are focused on an educational campaign to help people to understand and tune into animal rights, which is really part and parcel of veganism. Our adverts are quite different to the one that you just played. We have a number of them running in Northern Ireland at the moment on your buses, so hopefully you've seen some of those. We focus very much on the fact that other animals are sentient, they're alive just like we are, and so we feel that it's wrong to use them as resources just because we have the power to do so. That doesn't make it right.
You said that some of the advertisements were running on the buses. Can you describe what those advertisements are, just for anybody who hasn't seen them?
Yes, I believe one of them is the ad on dairy, which points out that the dairy industry involves taking baby calves away from their mothers. A lot of people are unaware of that because we're not educated about how we take milk from other animals. And I believe the other one is about veganism being about recognising animal rights, or about the fact that animals are someone and not something.
And Barbara, what exactly does it mean to be a vegan? What can you eat and what can you not eat?
Yeah, so veganism in the UK goes back to the 30s and 40s, and actually the roots of it go back much further than that. But in the 30s and 40s there was a breakaway from vegetarianism by people who realised that not only should we not eat animals' bodies, but we shouldn't be using them as resources for any purpose. So we don't use animals for food, for clothing, for entertainment, to experiment upon, and we don't buy animals. So we don't believe that the pet industry is something that should continue either. We do rescue animals. There are far too many animals who are in need of a home because of the pet industry, and so vegans will often have animals in their homes, but we wouldn't refer to them as pets. They're not our things, and we wouldn't pay money for them.
Well, whenever we're talking about the whole campaign, Barbara, would you go down the line of, let's say, some farmers may say they're being demonised?
No, and we've made this very express as much as we possibly can. The future of food will always involve farming. It's just that we want to take animals out of farming. And I'm aware that it's a huge part of life and the economy in Northern Ireland, just as it is in Scotland. And we're not in the business of trying to put people out of business. And we don't try to highlight the culpability of any one party in this. We're all culpable. You know, we've all grown up using and paying for animals to be killed for us, if not killing them ourselves. And so the only way to extrapolate yourself from that is to say, I won't do that anymore, I won't be involved in that anymore, and so I will live vegan. So this isn't about blame or targeting anyone. It's about talking about how we move forward into a future that doesn't involve exploitation and violence, and that recognises that the future of all of our environment depends on this as much as anything else.
Ellie Pheeps from the National Sheep Association, you would obviously not agree with that message.
No, not at all. And initially I'd like to put to Barbara, how would we address the issue that the fact that around 60% of the UK is only suitable for farming livestock? How can we produce food in that area if we wanted to take livestock away from that?
Yeah, there's an excellent report that came out in April last year from Harvard Law School, Eating Away at Climate Change with Negative Emissions, and they actually did an assessment of land across the UK, including specifically Northern Ireland, and pointed out that we're using more than half of our cropland to grow food that is fed to animals. So we then reduce the calorie output by 10 to 20%. Instead, we could use that land to grow more food for humans, and if we did that, we could reforest vast areas of land currently used for grazing. So we're not talking about trying to grow vegetables on unsuitable land. We're talking about cropland that's already being used for crops. And they actually specify the products, the produce that we could grow more of that we're already producing, and the additional fruits and vegetables that we could add in. The UK imports 90% of our fruit and veg right now, and we could completely turn that around and become self-sufficient, feed everybody a much more healthful diet than we are at the moment.
And Ellie, I want you to come back on that, but just on that point, Barbara, there was a report done by the UN Food and Agriculture Organisation that showed that beef production in Britain and the rest of the Western Europe is 2.5 times more efficient than the global average and 4 times more efficient than some parts of the world. So there is a positive message there. And Ellie, I want you to come back on this about what Barbara has said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real message here to take away from a lot of these reports that we're looking at and that we're getting addressed to us. For example, the IPCC report from last year. And they look a lot at global statistics, so they're less specific about the UK, and they're looking at what's going on in other countries around the world and how they're farming. And like Nicola, you were just saying, there's a lot more to it than that. In the UK, we farm quite differently to other countries.
That doesn't... Sorry.
I was just going to say, environmentally, the UK is a lot more efficient, and if we break things down and look at the way that we're farming in the UK, it's a very, very different picture to globally.
Ellie, give us a snapshot of how we farm in the UK compared to the rest of the world.
So the UK is a lot more extensive, so that basically means that what we do is farm most of our livestock outside on grass-based systems. There's of course the exception to every rule, and some things are slightly different, and that's something that UK livestock accepts it needs to look at and work its way around and work its way through. But the vast majority of animals live off grass, live outside, don't come inside at all, or if they do, it's only for a short period during, for sheep, particularly lambing time, where they'll just be inside for a matter of a week or two while they lamb, then move back outside onto grass once the lamb's a bit stronger and ready to survive outside.
And I was going to say, Barbara, if you're saying to remove animals from farming, what do you want to do with the animals?
Yeah, well, two things there. 30% of Northern Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions come from agriculture, the majority of which comes from animal agriculture. And to say that it's more efficient from elsewhere ignores the fact that that involves using vastly more land. So 70% of Northern Ireland's land is used for agriculture, 97% of which is for animal agriculture. And the expert reports are coming thick and fast telling us we have to reforest. Well, to reforest, we're going to have to free up land. And the way we do that is by taking animals out of the picture so that we can access that land to re-establish the native woodland.
So whenever you say, what do you want to do with the animals? Because they're going to be there.
Well, the animals are only there because we forcibly breed them. We forcibly breed billions of animals every year into existence so that we can use and kill them. If we stopped forcibly breeding them, then there would be fewer and fewer of them, and eventually
I would disagree.
None of these species.
I would disagree on the basis that if we stopped specifically breeding animals and we just left them to carry on with what they're doing and let them go about their daily lives, they'd probably end up having a lot more animals with a lot worse welfare, where nobody's looking after them, nobody's checking on them, nobody's treating them for disease and things.
Well, with respect, we're not talking about them going about their daily lives. They have a finite lifetime, as we all do, and so if we stop breeding them, but
if animals won't just stop breeding, if we stop breeding them, if we stop putting tups out with ewes, they'll carry on breeding themselves. They'll carry on doing what they're doing. We can't stop them doing that.
And I want to bring Jane in here because we've got Jane McLennan, who's a nutritionist, who's sitting in studio and she's listening to what you're saying. And Jane, from a nutritionist point of view, you must see a spike, particularly when it comes to January, with people who want to overhaul their diet. So when it comes to going down a particular route, be it veganism or vegetarianism, as a nutritionist, what would you advise? Because there's a lot of young people out there who consider their diets, particularly when it comes to young girls and more increasingly young men as well, about what they do with their eating. So what's your advice?
Well, I think the first thing is that no matter what your diet is, whether it's vegetarian, vegan or an omnivore, there's healthy ways of eating and unhealthy ways of eating. So you can have a healthy vegan diet and an unhealthy vegan diet. And I think, all you need to do is walk down any supermarket aisle now and you can see that there's huge amounts of replacement foods and different types of burger replacements, sausage replacements, that kind of thing. To me, that's still junk food. So it's still processed. So I'm always of the opinion that no matter what your diet is, do your best to eat real food. And we do know that Ellie was talking about some of the issues around grass-fed. So we do know that meat from grass-fed animals is higher in levels of a type of fat called CLA, for example, which is very beneficial for human health. But on the other hand, if people choose to go down a vegan diet, whether it's just for January or whether it is lifelong, it's very important that you're looking at different particular nutrients, and the one that hits the headlines all the time is B12, which yes, you can get from fortified foods, but the best way to get that into your diet, if you're following a totally vegan diet, is to take a supplement. The other nutrients that I would be a little bit concerned about would be omega-3. So the type of omega-3 that we get from a plant-based or a vegan diet, or a vegetarian diet actually, comes from things like flax, hemp and chia seeds, and that is not as bioavailable to our body as the type of omega-3 that we get from oily fish, which is DHA and EPA. There is a vegan alternative, but again, that would be a supplement.
So there's really you really have to look at your diet very, very closely if you're going to make any of these changes. We have had a few texts in on this. If you do want to join in this conversation, it's 81771, so please text in your comments. Somebody here has texted in, veganism has some opportunities for Northern Ireland farmers. Vegans eat plants and there has been little horticultural development here. Root vegetables, kale, cabbage, garlic, potatoes, Jerusalem artichokes can be grown almost anywhere here. Most farmers here would now not know how to grow anything other than grass, a big change from the past. Now we do have Libby, who's sitting opposite me. Libby, you are a beef farmer, so what do you say to that texter?
I think they need to drive around the country with their eyes open a wee bit more, because there's plenty of cereals and crops, fruit, vegetables being grown constantly in Northern Ireland. Obviously some of the fruits, for example, may not suit our climate, so we're limited to that, but goodness me, I was in County Down this morning and it's just a wash with different vegetable growers. I mean, it's fantastic.
And Barbara, do you think that there is ever a way that, you know, that vegans, the message that the vegans are promoting, and also the message that farmers who are here to produce meat are promoting, can ever live together? So in other words, if farmers were producing great homegrown grass-fed livestock, would that not satisfy you, that both could live beside each other?
I think what will inevitably happen is that farmers will at some point accept that this is the direction of travel, that people are changing, are acknowledging that we shouldn't be doing this to other animals, and we're devastating the environment through doing that, and so it has to stop. And so we will see farmers transition. We're already seeing the start of that. It is happening, not frequently, but it is occurring, and that will become more and more frequent as farmers realise that they have to adapt and change. They're digging their heels in and refusing to accept what is inevitably going to come. If we are to survive, they're going to have to face up to that, and we will always be here to help. We are always offering to give assistance to transitioning, to growing plants, or to doing something else with your land that is beneficial, and we're encouraging policy changes from the government to incentivise and make it more possible, because there are a number of farmers who are actually locked into the system and they would like to get out. They're grappling with their conscience. It's really affecting their mental health, and it's not necessarily financially stable. And what we should be doing is offering farmers an alternative that is better for everyone.
And we've got another texter in here. Ellie, you might want to address this. To produce vegetables and fruit all cause CO2 emissions. You have to plant the product, you have to harvest the product, you have to manufacture the product, i.e. wash, package, etc. You also have to transport the products by vans, lorries, boats, planes, etc. You can't grow a lot of fruits and veg here because it's too cold.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, there has to be a balance, and there's always going to be trade-offs. Somewhere along the line, we need to accept that food production has to have some impacts. What we can do is try and offset that and find ways around it. And the best way to do that is finding balance and farming things in the best landscape that you can, in the best place that you can. So what we should do is accept that there's 60% of the UK is best suited to permanent pasture. So we should use that land to run animals, and actually that can be environmentally friendly. If they're running extensively, we need to use less machinery. We don't need to use as much other bits like that. And it's also the fact that if we're offshoring our food production, we're, like you say, we're bringing in more carbon, we're creating more that way. Whereas if we're doing it in this country and farming in the best possible way for that particular piece of land, that's there's no other way around it. We can see that fruit and vegetables that can't be grown in this country can be best grown elsewhere.
And Jean, carry on.
I was just going to say, I think we should try and be scientific about it. I mean, there are a number of expert reports that we can be referencing, including the Eat Lancet report, which was the most widespread analysis of different food types on sustainability and healthfulness, and concluded that the most sustainable and healthful diet is the vegan diet. So, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Just whenever you come to saying about the health benefits, I want to ask Jane, whenever it comes to removing, let's say, dairy products from your diet, would you consider that a good thing to do, particularly whenever I'm talking to young children, teenagers, that kind of thing?
Well, I think from my point of view, rather than thinking about it as being a good thing to do or a bad thing to do, I think the most important thing is that if you remove anything from your diet, you've got to work hard to get the nutrients that are missing because of that. So take the case of dairy, you need to get your calcium in. You need to be thinking about getting lots of nuts and seeds. Sesame seeds, for example, are a really good source of calcium. Really dark green leafy vegetables. So you can't get it on a junk food vegan diet, but you can get it on a healthy vegan diet. So I think that's the message, that it's got to be, there is a difference between a processed diet and an unprocessed diet, whether it is vegan or not.
Jane, thank you very much for that. And Ellie and Barbara, I could talk to you all evening, and I'm sure we could discuss this and dissect this for a few more hours, but I want to thank you very much for joining us on Farming Matters tonight. And again, if you want to keep those comments coming in, it's 81771.